many times the gospel reading is both literal and then also metaphorical. So literally, we believe that the Theotokos was committed to the temple by her parents. So Joachim and Elizabeth brought her to the temple and then committed her life then to the church. So she enters into the temple, and then obviously from there, then she gives birth to he who then grants us salvation. But from a metaphorical sense, it's also important that we understand that the church puts these gospel readings and these feasts in a very ordered way. So they're not just there just haphazard, because we're all aware that Jesus was not born in December. Okay, so the historical events in that case don't really matter to us. What matters is what Jesus Christ brought to us. So we have now at the beginning of the Nativity feast, we have now the entrance of the Theotokos into the temple. Metaphorically speaking, this is our entrance now into a new season. It's entrance into the Nativity or the Christmas season. The church knows that when the last time that we really felt that fire, that presence of God, was at Pascha. And when we heard those words, "Vefte lavete fos," and everybody held up their candle, I know it was not as great this year as it has obviously been in past years, but the church knows that unfortunately it's very difficult to keep that light going. Why? Because we're choked by the desires and the needs and the challenges that we're faced with in our life. So the church knows that. And so now we have almost 6 months go by, and the church now wants us to do what? They want us to remember, they want us to rekindle that flame that we lit at Pascha. And so metaphorically, we re-enter into the temple. We re-enter into the church, into the community of God, and we light that light again, which means what? The two great commandments that Jesus Christ gave us. He gave to his disciples and he gave to us. Love the Lord your God with all your strength and your might, and then love one another as I have loved you. And he says, on these two sit all the commandments. And this is what the church wants us to do, is to remember now, this is a time to return to church, to the community. Equally so, it is a time for us to remember those who are in need, those who suffer emotionally, those who suffer physically, those who suffer in health or in crisis, and for us to remember them. And that is this metaphorical re-entrance back into the church from where we stepped out of. And so this season, that's what I want us to remember. And not to be the fool, right? Aphron, the fool that now says, hey, you know what? I've done all of these good things. I got a lot of wealth. I'm really happy. So I'm just going to sit back and eat, drink, and be merry. And then what does he say to him? He says, your soul will be required tonight. So as we have seen during this year, we have unfortunately had many of our parishioners pass away suddenly. And we say, τι θα πούμε τώρα, αυτό είναι από το χέρι του Θεού. Εμείς δεν ξέρουμε την ώρα που θα περάσουμε. We don't know the time that we will leave. And so, unfortunately, this year has brought this to light. It has put us right in there to know that we don't know what that time is. And we have a limited time to obey those two great commandments upon which we will be judged. And so the church wants us to remember that. So they put this great feast in there for us and asks us metaphorically to re-enter, to bring our minds back to that time when we lit that candle and said, "Let the light of Christ shine in me." These are the words that you hear, those wonderful words that you hear in the Proiasmeni Liturgia, where we turn and we say, "The light of Christ illumines us all." So that Lenten period, so we have this second Lent period here at Christmas, and we're reminded of that. And when you are reminded of something, then you are responsible for it. So the church reminds you, and now you are responsible for that. If you choose to forget that, if you choose not to, or if you choose to ignore it, then those are the things that will be required of you, as we heard today, at this second coming. At the second coming, you will be asked, "What did you do with the priesthood I gave you?" And the church gave you the opportunity to remember that love the Lord your God and help those, help your brother. So did you do that? And you have to have an answer for that. And you can't turn to your mother or your father, your brother or whoever and say, "Well, they did it," or, "Well, I had other things to do." You will stand alone before God, the great judge, and you will have to answer for not only those things that you have done, but more importantly, those things that you have failed to do. So the church as the mother, as the church is our great mother, then says to us, remember now those who are in need. And this is why now we have the great feast placed where they are to remind us of these very, very important things that also lead to our salvation.